And now, it's the Better with Bourbon Podcast with Brad Martineau and Deacon Palmer. Fast thinking and smooth drinking.
The views and opinions shared on the Better with Bourbon Podcast are our own and those of our guests. Nothing we discuss should be taken as financial, legal, business, or gambling advice. Don't make investment, business, or betting decisions based on our conversations, as you should always talk to a qualified professional. Always drink responsibly, never drink and drive, and only consume alcohol if you are of legal drinking age.
Senior year English. It's the only class in high school that Jamie and I and our other best buddy JD had together. I do not think that's an accident. That it was the only one. The teacher was a guy named Mr. Markowitz. Mr. Markowitz was a great teacher. He would go back and forth with us. He would play with us, but we would get rambunctious in his classroom because I think he liked the banter. And, you know, at least JD and I were relatively good students, and we would carry Jamie along with us. And one day we're really getting in, we're having a really good time. I don't know what we were talking about, but we're really giving it to him. Everybody in the class is laughing. Of course, I had to sit, we had assigned seats. I was in the back, Jamie's over here, JD's over here. So we're as far away from each other as we possibly could be in the classroom, so we can't conspire to do anything bad. And he's like, okay, people, enough. We've been going on long enough. The three of you need to shut up because we have to work now. And he turns around and he walks back to the podium and he says, okay, open to page 30. And I don't know what I wanted to say, but I raised my hand as soon as he's turned around. He turns back around. He looks at me. He goes, is this germane? And with no hesitation, I go, Mr. Markowitz, I'm Deacon. And everybody erupts. Jamie and JD are laughing. He's like, you guys are beer and hot dogs. You're everything that's wrong with this country. And I shouldn't give it to him like that because he was one of the best teachers we ever had. But
he was
is this
right.
germane?
He was right about being
Is
wrong.
this germane, Mr. Markowitz? I'm Deacon.
This is what we're dealing with.
Okay, well, here we are. Better with Bourbon Podcast, episode 3.
We are back.
This is February 2nd, 2026.
3rd.
Oh, February 3rd.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Groundhog Day was yesterday, Mitch.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Apparently, we have a long winter coming. We're coming to you from the Better with Bourbon Media Studios here in Indiana, Pennsylvania, in the man cave. We got the fire ripping. We got some bourbon scattered around. You guys might notice, our loyal fans, that the scene looks a little bit different last week. We invested in some new technology. We're going to talk a little bit about this.
We might be coming in a little clearer, too, because we got the professional
new audio
microphones now, thanks to Bunny Tail Perry. And we also got, we're going high definition. So maybe you're coming in a little cleaner. You get to see your beautiful face. And by the way, did you
it's a work in progress.
We have Eddie Edwards in the house, and it is not Casual Friday.
This is I know. I'm doing tech tech bro outfit, and you're all dressed up.
Eddie is always dressed to the nines. You got to match the vibe.
You can try. You can put on whatever you want.
I'm not going to match it. I know.
Yeah, nobody's going to pay any attention.
No, they're not. They're going to. We got Hollywood Eddie here, so it can't wait.
So we got a little bit of a different show for you today. Last week we went through kind of 3 topic areas, kind of in succession. We spent some time on each. We talked in detail about AI and the data center economy. We talked about the drop of drinking in the U.S. It's at an all-time low, and then we did some predictions. Each of those went on for a little while. This week we have a different kind of idea. Because we have this guest in, we want to make use of the expertise that he brings and provides us. The topic today is going to be NIL, which means name, image, and likeness. And this fits into our broader business theme. But specifically today, we're going to talk about the business of college athletics and what some believe is the advancement, others may believe is the degradation of amateur athletics, because now college athletes are getting paid. Sports world is very different, and it's affecting some of the teams that we love and care about very much here in Pennsylvania, like our dearly beloved Penn State Nittany Lions. Rough year for them. Our Pitt Panthers, rough year for them. They both went to bowls, but they're kind of underachieving our...
They should have played each other.
Elevated expectations. But, NIL is definitely a polarizing topic. It's something, when you sit down at the bar and you start talking about whatever game you're watching, invariably you get people offering their own opinions. Again, some in support, some against. But what we realized is that this is a pretty emotional topic, but very few people are informed. Okay, so we thought we'd bring to you a real expert in the field.
He is the expert in the field, and I will vouch for that. I've known Eddie for 26 years, and his expertise in the NIL space, the NFL space, the NBA space as well, is second to none. He's a brilliant attorney by trade and just an expert when it comes to that. And so we're going to dig deep into the headlines that I'm sure everybody's reading about, all these beautiful NIL deals that are going out to these athletes today. They're moving like professional athletes throughout the collegiate ranks, and we have just the guy to ask all the questions to and ask him, how has this come about and why is it taking place as it is, and where's it going?
Perfect time of year to do this. We're just coming off the football championship with one of Indiana's favorite sons, Signetti, taking that title not too far before the NCAA tournament's going to kick off. So we're going to equip you to go drink smoother, sound smoother, be a little bit more articulate on a topic that people will listen to you talk about if you know.
And of course, we're going to ask Eddie his Super Bowl pick. If he's in the space, so we got to ask who he thinks is going to win the Super Bowl this weekend. So
totally,
yeah.
It's going to be great. So before we do that, a couple other things we want to do. We want to circle back and kind of continue the dialogue with some of the main themes that we introduced last week, both within our deep dives and then some of the predictions we offered. Relative to the AI space, we talked a lot last week about OpenAI and Nvidia and some of the financing arrangements that they had introduced late last year. Well, new news popped off last week. We're going to tell you about what happened and what it means, what the market response has been. We're going to talk about the data center economy, again, resurfacing one of the themes from last week, because we have a very large data center project here in Western Pennsylvania that we're very proud of, going on right down the street, not 5 miles from where we sit today. Some new news in the data center world coming out of Texas that I think is worth mentioning. And then third, in our predictions in an episode 1, we talked a little bit about market assets that are more commodity-based, specifically gold, silver, and then we spent some time on crypto last week. And if you were following this world, you have seen some massive price swings in these assets. If you own these things, hopefully you're not looking at your portfolio day to day because you're going to think you're hallucinating with the ups and downs that have been happening recently. We're going to talk about why some of that volatility has been introduced, what the market response has been, and maybe what to think about it going forward. But before we do any of that, right, we want to talk about, we got a bottle this week, a really nice bottle. It's featured down front here. You might notice that one of the small enhancements we put together this week is some of that lighting from underneath. Very professional looking, Brad. That's a great choice. Huh?
I think so. I mean, we got to showcase the bourbon that we are drinking and talking about, because we got a special one in the house, and we'll be talking with Eddie and why he brought it and what it's all about.
Right, we're going to offer some tasting notes. We're going to try to do right by the Willet people who manufacture this beautiful spirit. But before we do any of that in detail, we're going to talk about the thing that we care most about, us.
Well,
nah, not really us. We're going to talk about you and your response to our first couple podcasts. Bradley, tell them about how we're doing.
Well, as I mentioned last week, we were climbing the ranks. We were in the top 100 on Apple Podcasts, which we were just humbled and honored. Since then, and right before we went on set today, we are number 6. So we're in the top 5 and climbing steadily. So really impressed. It's impressed the heck out of me that we have that kind of response this quick after 2 episodes. But we do strive to provide good quality. So we're gonna continue to improve every episode, and we're gonna try to bring great guests on, great topics on. We love the AI space, the finance space, and the sports topics of the day. So
the drinking space.
And the drinking space. We are experts in that as well. So we are going to continue to do that and not take ourselves too seriously in the meantime. And you can't see it, but Perry did get a new pair of stilettos, and they look great. I mean, they really enhanced your calves. So I just got to tell you. I mean,
Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.
So first on the docket today in this space where fast thinking meets smooth drinking, we're going to dig in and touch a little bit on, again, this Nvidia OpenAI financing question. What happened? Why are we bringing this up again? We talked a lot about it last week. We're just going to spend a few minutes here. Big news over the weekend was that Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang walked back the widely reported $100 billion investment that he committed to in September relative to Nvidia's position with OpenAI. And what he said was he wanted to clarify that it was never a formal commitment, so to say. The clarification came during remarks when he was in Taipei on Sunday and was reported on by the Wall Street Journal. Huang at that time essentially explained that while OpenAI invited Nvidia to invest up to $100 billion in a very public kind of format, Huang's response was certainly non-binding. It was an LOI that was signed. It's not a legal document. It's an intent of some sort of commitment that will be worked out later. This was signed in September.
But do you think the market thought it was a done deal?
Well, I think that's why this is important, because this is where the headline doesn't always meet the reality given the timeline we're talking about. This happened in September. A lot has happened in the world since then. Lots of things have changed. And there are some questions about, again, like we pointed out last week, not just the investment pertaining to OpenAI specific to Nvidia, but the broader demand that a lot of these emerging AI and data center companies have on kind of the capital markets. Everybody's looking for money. We talked about 2 really specific cases last week, but there are many, many, many more. We could do a different show for 50 weeks in a row about a company that's looking for funding, what they want to use it for, the technology and their specific use case, who they're funding, who their relationships are, who the investors are. This is one of the biggest and most public. And the important point here is that what was announced in September and the market's reaction might have been a little bit premature given the kind of realities that are settling in today, right? So Huang said that while this is a non-binding agreement that we made in September, the $100 billion number it's a ceiling and it's not a promise. I didn't promise, I just kind of indicated that maybe we could do that. And he stated that Nvidia would invest kind of one step at a time. So despite the retreat from this $100 billion number, Huang said that we're definitely and absolutely going to be participating in OpenAI's current funding round. He definitely said that it's going to be the largest investment we've ever made as a company, and this is important because Nvidia is one of the 3 largest companies in the world. But reports suggest that today that number might be leveling in somewhere a little closer to $30 billion. So
70% decrease.
It's big time. So if you asked me to borrow $100 and I said, well, sure, and then I said I only got 30 to hand you, you might have to change your plans.
Well, that also begs the question: does he know something that we don't, that he doesn't want to commit to 100?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, the good folks at Wall Street Journal, being that this is what they do all the time, wanted to dig in on that and try to figure out why. Reports surfaced that Huang has privately expressed some concerns regarding OpenAI's lack of discipline in their business strategy. Really importantly, they're focused on this idea that Anthropic and Google's Gemini might be more formidable competitors than were thought last year. Certainly, Gemini's recent releases have been getting a lot more attention. OpenAI's
They've been great. I mean, I've been using the Gemini Pro lately, and I'm telling you what,
it's awesome. We use it for the research.
It's a wonderful product.
Yeah, OpenAI's 5 release was a little bit underwhelming. Some critics thought that it could have done a little more. There might be some, again, strategy drift. And secretly, there have been a lot of folks kind of quietly leaving OpenAI to pursue similar endeavors with other competitive models, the Anthropics, the XAI, the Geminis. So what's the market impact? Why are we talking about it? Why does anybody care? Well, when this came out last week, again, it was over the weekend, but on Monday, immediately Nvidia's shares traded down. And when we look at the peak, when they closed last week on Thursday to this morning, stocks traded down about 9% through today's close, as investors reacted to the uncertainty that the circular nature of the financing might introduce into the deal. That's a term that we introduced last week, talked a little bit about.
We talked quite a bit about that, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I think this is one of these points we say, like, I'm not sure we necessarily got it right, but we're circling around the right themes that Wall Street's looking at, the investment community is looking at outside of Wall Street. There's a lot of private capital in here. There's a ton of money in these deals that has come from Asia. And some of those investors in Asia are questioning whether or not they have the patience to hang out if this timeline for returns is going to get elongated. What if Jensen Huang doesn't come up with $100 billion and it's only 30? How long is it going to take OpenAI to find that other $70 billion that they need? Because $100 billion is the need. If that financing takes longer to arrange, what happens to some of the physical build out with some of the data centers that are associated with this? And we're going to talk about how data center development can impact economic returns on the back end. So interesting story, but Nvidia is now down from its Q4 highs about 17, 18% through today's close. I feel like we called this one out right, no victory, and somebody kind of losing money, but we're going to keep looking at this. What do you think?
I like Nvidia as a long-term stock just because they are involved and they have invested in a lot of different players, as we talked about that circular investing, not just OpenAI, but others in the industry, and their chips are in as high of demand as they come. So if their stock's going down and it continues to go down, it may be a great buying opportunity.
Potentially. But this week we also got earnings from Microsoft, which is the other. Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia are kind of the three companies that are driving this. If you own Microsoft stock, everybody does one way or another, whether it's in a pension, a 401k, or just outright. It's getting hammered. Their earnings this week were really good, but there were some questions about forward-looking commitments, very similar to the conversation we're having here. So this is a topic we're not going to dig in much beyond this right now.
But we're definitely going to continue to talk about it and watch it very closely to see where the market's going and where the infrastructure is going too.
Definitely. Second topic, let's talk a little bit about the data center economy, very related to AI. Can't produce AI without data centers. So we're coming to you from Indiana, Pennsylvania. Right down the street, again, not 5 miles from where we sit today, is a town called Homer City. Homer City, for many, many years, had one of the largest coal-fired power plants in the world. And it not only powered kind of residential Pennsylvania, but all the way down into West Virginia, Maryland, up into upstate New York, New Jersey, was one of the biggest power generation facilities in the country until Pennsylvania decided to take it off the grid because of the carbon imprint that it's making on the environment. Needed to upgrade that facility. The interesting thing about that piece of land is even though it stopped producing power, the piece of land still had lots of advantages to it. Water rights that were already permitted, transmission lines that could get electricity out of that space, massive natural gas lines that would fuel that space for cleaner power generation using nat gas as we transition from coal.
They're sitting right here in the Appalachian Basin. There we have more natural gas than the demand is currently meeting, and a lot of the natural gas in the basin is shut in. So it's just waiting for opportunities to utilize it, and this will help.
Real source of pride for the area because we haven't had a development project like that going around here for a long time. Certainly something that we get a lot of chatter about at the bar while we're sitting there talking about NIL and why the Steelers are so bad this year and what we got to do to fix that. Invariably, the Homer City Development Authority and what's going on there come up. So the Homer City plant, just some specs there so we can compare it to this new development in Texas. It was initially spec'd to be between a 4.5 and a 5 gigawatt gas and hydrogen powered station, which when announced was the largest industrial site in the country under development and the largest gas-fired power plant ever envisioned in the world. The site is about 32,000 acres big. Okay, not that we have any means to understand what that means, but when we bring up this Texas thing, you'll get an idea. And the investment that's going to be required to get this online is going to be about $10 billion big. Okay, so that's awesome, and was the celebration of the AI and data center space for many years until the world's largest title was stolen from Homer City in Pennsylvania by a new development project in West Texas called the Giga Ranch. This was announced as an 8,000-acre site with a massive 7.65 gigawatt gas plant. So this moves the AI power wars into a totally new phase. This is unquestionably the biggest industrial development projects that's ever been undertaken in the U.S., certainly one in the world. And the amount of money that is necessary to build this thing out there is going to be massive, right? So let's just talk a little bit about the differences between the two, just so we can, create more kind of constructive tension between Pennsylvania and Texas. We compete with pretty much everything, and I'm just going to point out the thing that matters most, which is football.
Right? And also golf. We've had in the history an ongoing match play tournament with our friends in Texas once a year, which has gone on for a long time. That we always enjoy the competition.
We're going to beat them up there just like we do on a gridiron, right? So the most significant differences between these two isn't just the size, it's relative to the strategy that they're going to use to get power out of the grid. We've heard a lot of negative news about power demands from AI. this is kind of an interesting take that they're using down in Texas. So while Homer City is leveraging the existing PJM transmission lines, which I mentioned to you, these are the approved regulated power lines that are regulated by the PJM authority, which is the power transmission authority here in the Northeast. These lines feed both the data center and the power that it's going to generate that's going to be available to sell back to the public. That's the one way to do it. The Giga Ranch in Texas is being built as a completely private, off-grid, or as they say in the industry, behind the meter solution, where they will generate all of their own power. There will be no public energy used, and they're actually going to sell a massive amount of power back to ERCOT, which is the Texas Power Authority. Texas has its own power authority. They got their own state regulatory authority. So
That's good news.
Yeah, this is interesting because this strategy requires much less regulatory approval. In states where you typically have to take power from the grid, and we're talking about, in this case, a great big giant natural gas line, the Homer City folks don't just say to the regulator, hey, can we just get kind of a great big giant fat extension cord? We'll plug it in your side, we'll plug it in our side, and we're ready to go. You have to do years and years of what's called interconnect work. You have to run a study about what it'll cost, how it'll affect the local economy, the technical feasibility of the physical solution, and then that interconnect work has to be done before you build one rack of server space or one cooling chamber.
And the permitting process is much more intense.
It's massive, right? So the Texas folks are going to undo this because they, much like us here in Pennsylvania, have a great advantage. They're sitting on, we're here in the middle of the Marcellus Shale. They there are in the middle of the Permian Basin, right? And specifically the Waha gas hub, right? So by piping that gas directly out of the ground to a private behind grid structure, they're trying to kind of exploit the same strategy that's being used here. They're just doing it all behind the grid, right?
So good use of the natural gas, because before they would have to burn it off because it was nuisance gas. So they're putting good use to something that otherwise was just being wasted.
Yeah, so this hybrid model is going to get them faster approvals, get shovels in the ground a lot quicker, and potentially, as they say, benefit the local economy through the amount of energy they're going to be able to sell back into the space. So this is something that we're going to be watching. We take great pride in this project popping up here in Pennsylvania. It's neat to know that others are seeing this as successful enough to this point to push the envelope and create something that's potentially a multitude bigger.
It is.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
Third, really quickly here before we move on to what you want to hear, gold, silver, and crypto. We talked a little bit about it last week, and certainly in week one, we made some of our predictions about the year, about relative to what was going to happen with these assets. Just a level set, gold was up 65% in 2025. Silver was up a whopping 148%.
Somebody called it.
Yeah, right. If only somebody would have told you. Bitcoin was pretty flat. It was down about 1% last year. But as we moved into Q4 last year, all three of these assets just moonshot. We talked a lot about it. We're not going to repeat it until last week. Last week, we told you 2 weeks ago that this run might be getting a little long in the tooth, might be time to start to fade some of this, this moonshot action. Lo and behold, silver down 41% in 3 days. Gold, healthy correction, down 10%, but for an asset like that, it's a pretty big move in such a short time. Bitcoin, just like silver, down 42%. What in the world would cause this, and what's it mean? So there's a couple reasons why you'd see something, like the speculative shakeout. The guys that were late to the party are now getting really punished. We've seen, these assets take months to get this high, multiple weeks to get this high. They lose all that gain in a matter of hours. There's kind of two or three main reasons. Number one, and I think probably most important, we got some insight in the last few days on who the administration's pick for the next chairman of the Federal Reserve is going to be. For a long time, it was believed to be a gentleman that was named Kevin Hazlitt. Kevin Hazlitt was seen as somebody who would widely kind of bow to the administration's demands for lower interest rates, and was kind of seen from the perspective of the financial community from Wall Street as kind of a yes man for the administration. And while lower rates would certainly be good for the economy, there's a reason why the Fed operates independently from the other three branches of government. Turns out that Trump did not decide on that, Kevin. He picked a gentleman named Kevin Warsh, who was an economist who traces back to Stanford. Brilliant guy. I listened to him talk for about 50 minutes on a podcast over the weekend. Would recommend you looking him up. And he is a brilliant communicator, a very steady hand, a very confident guy. But he is a guy who is not going to just take direction. He's going to think on his own. And some are questioning whether that means interest rates are going to fall immediately. If interest rates don't fall, that essentially raises the purchase price for people not buying in dollars for commodities that are priced in dollars. We can talk about that later. But invariably, what it meant is some of the speculative fervor came out of those things immediately. When you see gold and Bitcoin, massive assets fall 40% in a couple of days, either there was people way overplaying their hands on the long side or were totally caught off guard by this decision. I think it was a little bit both, right?
Well, and I think a few of those that have bet heavily on Bitcoin were shaking in their boots a little bit because it was getting down to the point where it was in the mid to high 70s, I think, at one point, and it's just creeped back slightly since then. But where does it go from here?
Well, anytime you get some question about interest rates not getting cut or potentially being raised, the dollar rises. And when the dollar rises, it can have a knock-on effect to non-commodity assets like the market. That certainly could be contributing some of the weakness we've seen this week in assets like Microsoft, or just kind of broader weakness in tech after this great run. But there was a kind of a less obvious trigger that definitely played a role in these three assets specifically coming down. The CME, the Commodity Markets Exchange, which is essentially the exchange where commodities are traded. Sometimes when big investors want to capture a commodity, really lay into an asset class and make a big bet, they'll trade on what's called margin, right? And margin for non-investors is essentially like me giving Brad a credit card and saying, here's the rate of the credit card, go ahead and spend all you want, okay? CME allows people to invest with borrowed money. But just like with a credit card, sometimes interest rates move. And when those interest rates move up, investors who have bought gold, silver, Bitcoin on margin either have to do one of two things. They either have to post additional collateral to accommodate the fact that they now have to post a higher interest rate to borrow that money, or they have to sell that asset to meet that margin call. So why would that affect the price of Bitcoin? What would any of this have to do with Bitcoin, right?
Didn't I just read, though, I thought in the headlines here when Bitcoin started going down a downward trend that one of the major institutions sold it off?
Yeah.
In a big way?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because a lot of these institutions have holdings that have massive Bitcoin holdings, but now they also have a ton of gold and silver, right? Because these things have run up. If that starts falling and you don't want to sell your silver because you bought it with borrowed money, you can't sell the thing you want to sell. You got to sell the thing you can sell, right? And that would certainly play into the narrative about why somebody would sell a massive chunk of Bitcoin over the weekend and have it open yesterday down the way it was.
It may be also showing where they prioritize their top assets. Gold and silver still seem to be on top.
Gold and silver are projected to run. I can't imagine how they could go any higher than where they are right now. Again, like we said last few weeks, I think we need to see some sideways action to mellow out before those become investable again. But I think that's enough on this, huh?
No, let's get to what we're here for, and that is Eddie Edwards.
Yeah.
When we come back, we're gonna bring Eddie onto the set and get into the bottle of Rowan.
Yeah, when we come back, there'll be three of us here.
What happens when work disappears, when money dissolves, and when freedom becomes something you earn, not something you're born with? A new kind of power is rising, not a government, not a corporation, but the algorithm. In the algorithmic state, no jobs, no money, little freedom. Amazon best-selling author Bradley J. Martineau reveals the world we're stepping into. A world where your reputation is computed, your opportunities are filtered, and your identity is shaped by systems that know you better than you know yourself. This is not science fiction. This is the operating manual of the future forming around us right now. If you want to understand the forces that will define power, belonging, and freedom in the decades ahead, start here. The Algorithmic State, No jobs, no money, little freedom. Available now on Amazon.
And we're back. We're fast thinking, meek, smooth drinking here, Better with Bourbon podcast. You might notice we have an additional participant here. Bradley, who is this guy?
Oh, who is this guy? I think he comes known before I even have to introduce him. It's Eddie Edwards, Hollywood himself. Welcome to the set, brother.
I don't know about Hollywood, but the build up here.
Oh man, it's good to have you back in Indiana.
It's great to be in Indiana with good people, good bourbon, great podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a run.
Yeah,
We're
the
lucky.
success is amazing.
We're lucky how much of your attention we get.
No, you know what? I watch it.
We don't take it for granted.
I watch it. It's good.
Thanks.
It's great content. I let Brad know, good, bad, or indifferent.
That's right. That's right. He always has. So we go way back, Ed. I think we got to set the stage here. How you and I got to introduce each other to each other, and it goes back to law school.
No, absolutely. You know, and Brad, you're humble. I don't know if Brad's mentioned this. Did you know he was #1 in our law class?
Only, about once a week, yeah.
Yeah, he was the foremost mind in our law class. But me and Brad met in law school, cultivated a friendship over now, 26 years?
Met the very first day of law school.
Very first day of law school, right, where we dominated intramurals.
We did.
No doubt.
We weren't Division I athletes. We were intramural athletes. No NIL for us.
None.
But, we've been able over time to spend a lot of time with one another, our families, get to know our families, watch our families grow, watch the kids grow, and, look for opportunities to collaborate. So, when Brad called and said, hey, I got this podcast with Deacon, who we know each other in a different way.
Which is even more strange when we come to find out how small the world is, to learn where, by the way, I happen to be going to school in Erie, Pennsylvania, that you two actually met before I met you 26 years ago.
Can I tell it real quick?
Tell the story.
Okay.
Tell the story.
So a couple years ago, Brad and I didn't know each other very well. He calls me one day. He says, hey, one of my main guys is coming up. I think you guys would get along. We're going to play golf, have some lunch, maybe have a drink or two. I show up. We start talking. Hey, how are you? What kind of business you in? What do you do? Oh, great. You married? Got kids? Yeah, you married? No. Kind of new in the area. Okay, let's go play golf. So we get about to I think it was the 7th hole at Indiana Country Club, best greens in the world. And I'm looking at Eddie as he's stepping up to the tee, got muscular back, whole thing, tall guy. I said, Eddie, you look like an athlete. What was your sport coming up? And he goes, I played a little basketball. Played basketball up at Penn State, up in Erie. And I said, no, you didn't. Penn State, Erie? And I said, yeah, you remember the oak, James? And you're like, the oak tree. So we found out that we had met, this would be, let's see, your junior year, our freshman year, your sophomore?
It'd be 95.
Yeah, 95. I went up to see Jamie play. Only time I got to see him play in college. And as you do at that age, we stayed and had a couple drinks with the ladies in the dorm. And invariably, I fell asleep on somebody's floor. Come to find out, that was your floor I slept on.
There were many people that slept on that floor.
We go way back.
It happens.
So I knew him before you did. But anyway, keep going.
And even before that,
yeah,
the Latrobe Rotary Tournament
heck yeah.
with Simon Gratz. That's where I first met Okonak, because Latrobe would bring in a top-tier basketball team every year.
Yeah.
And we were on our finals break, and our coach was recruiting Jamie. So he said, hey, what are you doing? Would you like to, So we went down.
That's right.
And saw them play against Leonard Stewart. I think it was Sean Smith and Terrell Stokes. What a lineup.
Well, Rashid almost ripped a goal off the roof.
Yeah, that was the year before.
Oh, okay.
But the year after, they came back
got it.
with, they just kept producing him at Simon Gratz.
Man,
So
they always
didn't matter.
They were, and I'm sure they still are. I haven't followed that close, but they were top.
Top tier.
It was a crazy team. Crazy set.
Small world, though, right?
Yeah. They would have had NIL money back then.
Could you imagine? That's a great question that I always pose to athletes, so I know from yesteryear. What do you think your NIL value would be today? It's Eddie. Oh my God! If we could have done that back then, because again, there was a lot of athletes that could have benefited
big time
from those opportunities.
Big time, it's as an athlete that, at least in the high school ranks back then, I've experienced and played against some of them, and and I'm sure you could too. Just name off a few that it's a shame that they couldn't benefit from it.
Well, and I told Brad, we do pre-production. So when me and Brad were in pre-production here today before he started to film, I was telling him a story about when I was a young man. I say young man now, it's aging myself. But when I was younger, I was helping with the McDonald's All-American game when it was here in Pittsburgh in 1996.
Just so the listeners know, when we were talking about this story, we were rocking on our rocking chairs out front.
Absolutely. Back when I was but I was telling Brad, part of my duties was escorting some of the celebrities, around.
You were an escort.
I was an escort.
Did
not
not
in
know
that
that
capacity.
Okay,
not in that capacity, but I was escorting some of the celebrities around from event to event. And one of the individuals was a top tier Division I basketball player. I mean, he was a star, ended up being an NBA star, and still involved in major basketball to this day. But he was talking about buying Christmas gifts for his parents in the student store, and he was buying his own jersey, and didn't get anything for it.
It's amazing.
So he's like, I'm going to go into our bookstore and I'm going to spend $150 on 2 jerseys because I want to give that as a gift back to my parents. But what's wrong with the thought of me actually going and buying my own jersey that I get nothing for, and that benefit's going to go back to the university?
Makes no sense.
No, that doesn't make any sense. And before we go any further down that road, I want to let the listeners know just a little bit more about yourself. How did you get into, I always find it fascinating because, you and I were very close in law school. We hung out, we played intramural basketball. We even played intramural football one semester because we just accidentally signed up for the wrong league. But that was we hung out all the time, and I knew you had a sports background. And you come from a very talented family. Your father, gifted athlete. What got you into the space?
So, sports from a young age. I wasn't much of a reader. So the way that my parents enticed me to read was to read the sports section. And back then we had the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which was our morning edition, and the Pittsburgh Press, which was our evening edition.
And the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's going away, I hear.
And it's going away now. But I would read that sports section cover to cover every single day. So I could recite stats. As I got older, my mother got me probably the most valuable thing that I had was my Sports Illustrated subscription.
Yeah, I remember those.
I read it front to back with Steve Rushin, and remember in the back with his editorial, Faces in the Crowd, right, at the end.
I got to be honest, I never read it front to back. Only the swimsuit issue.
Only swimsuit.
Yeah, that's the one I paid most attention to.
So much, and he still has them, right?
He still has all those.
They're valuable.
Yeah, right.
But I would read Sports Illustrated. I would consume as much as I could. Passion, I didn't have any business purpose with it. It was just passion. Then at that same McDonald's All-American game, when I was escorting some of the guys from Penn State, I asked one of the guys, I said, who handles all this stuff for you? And when he told me who the agent was, I was like, you know what? I think I can do that. But then, do you know any agents? Just so happened that the Honorable Dwayne Woodruff, who's now a judge, former Pittsburgh Steeler, former Super Bowl Pittsburgh Steeler,
and very well-respected
attorney, was an agent, as well as an attorney. He was certified. He happened to be my family's attorney. He represented my dad on matters. So, of course, I corner him one day, and I'm like, Judge, back then it was Dwayne, Mr. Woodruff. I want to be an agent. Can you help me out? Like, how can we do this? Little did I know, my dad had already went to Dwayne and said, hey, my kid's going to come to you. He wants to be an agent, but he's got to go to law school first. So we're not doing this before he goes to law school. So I got to.
I'm so happy he said that.
Well, I go to Judge Woodruff, and he said, Eddie, when you're done with law school, the minute you're done with law school, you call me, and we'll figure this out, right?
That's great.
So the minute we probably walked off the stage, went to the graduation party thereafter, and he was there, and I said, you know what, we're doing this, and we did it. And it's been a fantastic. Now it's almost 25-year ride of representation of athletes. As a certified NFLPA contract advisor, an NBPA certified agent, and an attorney. And when I tell people, I'm an attorney with those licenses, not necessarily the moniker of agent. Everybody kind of looks at you, can look at you differently when you come out and say, hey, I'm an agent, but I'm an attorney with certifications.
And just so folks know, you don't have to be an attorney to be an agent.
You do not,
even though you are dealing heavily with contracts.
And that negotiating background, dealing with complex business issues, things of that nature, comes in really handy. It's a definite
I've seen you
advantage.
firsthand. It's impressive.
It's an advantage, right?
Yeah.
To be able to do those things.
Yep.
So, the sports thing was pretty natural. I know I played as a kid growing up, was a modest athlete, but loved the sport. And then you get married, life goes on, you have kids. You don't know where your kids are going to end up. You hope they end up doing some cool things.
Your kids did some really cool things.
I mean, lo and behold, 3 D1 athletes.
Right.
Man.
Like, from this D3 kid,
Mom
3 D1 athletes.
Mom must be a hell of an athlete.
That is the
mom.
real story. When we have Portia on and we talk about the real athlete in the family and the real reason Eddie had to become an agent.
It was just, and it's funny because my oldest played baseball at University of Buffalo. So at that point, there's no NIL, right? That wasn't even a talking point. Then my middle goes and plays basketball at the Air Force Academy.
The same time
Colorado
Skeens was there.
Springs?
Yeah, and Skeens, when James was in his last year at the academy, Paul Skeens was a freshman on the baseball team.
No kidding. Wow.
And because they're at a service academy, the NIL stuff wouldn't have mattered anyway because they can't take it, right?
Right.
So then my youngest, who arguably is the most athletic of the 3,
Well, she made USA Today.
yeah,
I remember that
She
story.
did
That
make
was
USA
a
Today.
impressive story.
She calls me the day that it's approved. Says, "Dad, you're in this business. I need deals." I'm like, "Honey, it's not that easy. It's not that easy." At that point, she was playing in the Patriot League, which is a great league. It's a great academic league.
Bucknell,
But
Lehigh.
Bucknell,
Colgate,
Lehigh,
right?
Colgate, West Point, right? They're all there. But when you're looking at opportunities, at least back then in the collective days, it was based on your following, right? They wanted to see like what kind of reach can a business get, for engaging with, especially athletes at that level. Like at the more higher profile back then, P5, now P4 schools, a little bit easier because of the visibility. So, saying to your daughter, "Well, this is going to be rough," but helping her figure out even for product. So it was a great teaching tool, right? How to be a brand ambassador. How to build out that brand. People forget name, image, likeness.
That's right.
Intellectual property. This isn't pay to play.
But we have to tell the quick story on Lauren and how she went from being a graduate assistant to all of a sudden being the starting point guard.
Yeah, that was really crazy. So my daughter is at Loyola Maryland. Had an extra year. Everybody had the COVID year, so everybody was afforded an extra season, right? And she was one of the COVID kids that was enrolled and playing at that time. And she's exhausted her eligibility as far as academics, right? Because now I shouldn't say exhausted her eligibility, but academically she was graduating. So she's like, "Dad, you know what? I'm gonna put my name in the portal. Let's see what happens," right? So she got 5 opportunities, none of which she wanted to return to. So she's like, "All right, now what am I going to do?" And there were 5 Division I opportunities, some local, some not so local, but just nothing really resonated with her.
Yeah.
So she gets a call from one of her previous coaches and says, "Hey, we have a graduate assistant position available at our school." And she interviews for it and unfortunately doesn't get it. But that coach calls another school and says, "I have a great candidate." She calls Providence. Says, "I have a great candidate for you. This young lady played for me. I think she'd be fantastic." Providence hires her. Well, that first year, Lauren's killing these girls in practice. And I'm hearing this from the coach. Like she's giving it to our girls in practice. Right.
You take a Pennsylvania girl up to New England, she's going to dominate.
That's a big basketball area. A big basketball area. I didn't realize how big until I got there. Fall River Dreams.
Right.
Remember the book?
Oh, I know.
It's not far from there.
No, I know. Well, when I get to experience it firsthand.
Firsthand. So then the second year, she's doing the same thing in practice, and the coach says, jokingly, "Do you have any eligibility left?"
Yeah, wow.
Lauren said, "Actually, I do." Maybe 8 days later, she's suited up, playing against Columbia.
Right.
2 games later, she's starting.
Yeah.
Playing 38 minutes in Big East
Impressive.
basketball.
Wow.
And she played great basketball. I mean, it was a great unforeseen, I'm sure, on her part, thinking that she was going to get that extra year. But it made USA Today. We were fortunate. You were nice enough to invite Tony and I up to watch her play UConn. We got right behind the bench with Providence.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. And you see it on TV, but then to go and experience it firsthand when you have a sold out crowd on a Tuesday night and you got fireworks going. I mean, these ladies and that coach up there, they are rock stars. I mean, rock stars.
It's amazing. They played that game in the Hartford Civic Center.
Yep.
It was a Big East opener, and both teams, I think, were tied at that point for first place in the Big East, right? So we go, and it's like a Laker game. I mean, the atmosphere was unbelievable. And I happen to know one of a graduate who played at UConn. So you were there. I was texting during the game. I'm like, you guys got pyrotechnics, loud music. And the response I got was, we want to defeat you before the tip-off.
They do. They
Right?
had it all.
It's intimidating. Think about it. You're coming from an arena where, they got pregame music, you got fans. I mean, this was a spectacle.
It was.
It was incredible.
Jumbotron.
Yeah, Jumbotron. I mean,
right.
but wait a second.
No.
It was sold out.
Sold out.
So we're not talking about half of a full arena.
We're talking.
We're talking about to the rafters, just loud as can be. Amazing. So again, really proud of her and happy for her because this is about life experiences.
It is, and what a great,
Totally.
what a great story. What a great experience. You have to be so proud. All three of your kids, and I've gotten to know each of them in a different way, are so special.
I
You
appreciate
and
that.
Portia are just,
And likewise.
and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, you guys are special people. I mean, that was one of the common bonds we had in law school when we first met. Is that we were one of the few only married couples that were going to law school, and we got to talk about that and the commonality of basketball, and then obviously law, and we just took it from there.
Yeah, I was dragging kids to class sometimes. So
Yeah, he mentioned that's great. You know what? This is a perfect opportunity for me to break in and do something that's totally self-serving, but for all of us. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Pennsylvania, for instilling in us and in your children the drive and commitment associated with trying to be great at athletics. Sports makes you a better person if you commit yourself to it. And I also want to say thank you, Pennsylvania, for having such a wonderful set of world-class universities. We just named how many that are local here, and we can name 20 more. Thank you, Pennsylvania, for everything you do for us. Thanks for taking such good care of us.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that, real quick, and then we get back.
cheers,
Sorry,
cheers.
I'll
We'll
be
get back to
quiet.
it.
I know I'm
No,
supposed
cheers.
to.
stretch.
I'm reaching. I don't want to knock
There
the
we
mic
go.
over again. With that, I'm sure if our listeners saw, my mic went from this side to that side as we're getting used to these new boom mics, which they are nice. But now I can see where I'm talking, and I'm not going to hit it again unless we get really animated. And I'm coming across the chair, and that might be the bourbon or the ice cube. You might have to watch out.
You guys have to watch the outtakes. You already got up close and personal with the mic.
You had your
I did.
mic mishap of the night.
Yeah, I did. It might
Don't
not
knock anything else
Yeah,
in.
we'll just keep track of that.
So far, it's only the bottle, the microphone, that lamp. Yeah, we'll keep
If I
going.
may add, though, the reaction, the cat-like reflex,
He's still quick.
because we kept the bottle.
Yeah,
He realized what was important. Hell with the mic, get the bottle.
so let's get into some of the main topic here.
Let's dive in. Because we got a little bit of Mr. Edwards' background. He is a well-respected, and I just want to say, and before we do, I do want to, since we are in Super Bowl week.
Oh, nice.
I do want to talk about two more topics before we get into really dive into the NIL, because when we get in the NIL, this discussion it's going to be intense.
Yeah, okay. So
and we're not going to back
goof
off.
around for a little while.
So I got two things that I think we need to talk about. Super Bowl week. You being in the space, that was how you started. It was before NIL was. You were NFL. That was your focus. So tell us a little bit how you got into the NFL. Who was your first, if you can tell us.
So
I don't know any of this.
this is actually a cool story, and I know he won't mind me telling the story.
Which is good. And I got to meet him through you at when we were at Oakmont, and he's a really nice guy.
So Andy Lee was my first client, University of Pittsburgh. And so you take the agent test, you for the NFLPA, you apply in January, you take the test in July, you don't find out till October. So in the recruiting cycle, if you're recruiting new clients, you're behind the eight ball, right?
Stress, it's enough to make you drink.
It's enough to make you drink. So I get my certification in October, and I'm like, all right, now what do? Now this is real. I gotta get guys. So I had a friend who reaches out to me and says, Eddie, I don't know if I could help you, how I can help you, but here's a phone number for Andy Lee. He is the Big East Special Teams Player of the Year, 2 years consecutive.
Pit guy, you're a pit
guy. I went to pit law.
Yep.
Great guy. So I'm like, all right. He's like, here's his number. That's all I got. So I remember this so vividly. It was Black Friday after Thanksgiving. I'm like, I'm going to give this guy a call. And they're at home. So I give him a call. I said, is this Andy Lee? He's like, yes, this is Andy. I'm like, this is Eddie Edwards. Look, I'm a brand new agent. I just got licensed. I have 0 clients, but I'd love to represent you. I'm like, and I promise you, I'll give you everything I got. I will work my tail off for you. I will consume all information, everything. A few more meetings, meet mom and dad, season's over. You got to do everything by the book. Can't give the kids anything. So these are just, you're allowed to talk. He signs with me. So my first year as a certified contract advisor by the NFLPA, I had a draft pick.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Right? A guy who's in the combine.
He was amazing.
I got to do a shoe deal.
Right? If he's a punter. So let's be honest. Because punters don't usually get that kind of spotlight, but Andy Lee brought that spotlight. He was an All-Pro how many years? He went on with so many great teams. He was one of the best punters that ever played the game.
He absolutely one of the best punters, one of the best people that ever played the game.
Yeah.
Because Andy Lee is one of the best as a human being, off the field, as a family man, on the field, performed at the highest level. 19 years. Think about that.
19 years.
19 years. He had one person represent him over 19 years. And I'll tell you what the best part of it is. We're still friends to this day.
Yes, you
I
are.
talked to him last week. We talk probably every other week, couple times a month. That's the value in this and what you get out of it. Because there's always going to be a beginning and an end, right? To every professional career, there's a beginning and an end. But when you have those relationships that extend beyond, Brad was with us last year at an event. We were golfing. You got a chance to meet him. I don't view it as transactional. No, what we do is transactional, but at the end of the day, it's the relationship you build
all about the
with the individual, right? So, and I tell people, say, Eddie, well, why law? Like, why law versus that, the contractual stuff with the agent business? And I do both, but I tell people, if I'm working as your agent, that's a succinct period of time. I could be your attorney forever, right? For all your endeavors. So, and I like being that piece of the puzzle, being the piece of the deal team. A lot of these people consider us family after a certain period of time.
I consider you.
And I consider you family. And I like being a part of that fabric, right? I enjoy that. Again, passion for what you do, being a zealous advocate on behalf of your client. That's what I like to do.
It's fantastic. Now we get a little bit of insight into your personality.
We do. So,
what do you say we take a break?
We're going to take a break.
Refresh these glasses.
We're going to refresh the glasses, stoke the fire, not mic the phone over. I can't even talk now. It's
You
got
had
me all
your one
flustered.
mic
But so
mishap for the night, Brad.
I know,
Two
but now it's 2. So
we come back, we get into some of the nuts and bolts about the world of NIL, develop some of your ability to understand and learn from this man's experience.
and we're going to get his Super Bowl pick before we.
The Super Bowl.
We got to get the Super Bowl pick. Got to see who he's looking at.
We'll be right back. Cheers.
In a world increasingly governed by algorithms, what happens to the soul? AI and God, can the two coexist? Is a bold and timely book that explores faith, agency, and ethics in the age of artificial intelligence. Drawing from scripture, legal insight, and philosophical depth, Bradley J. Martineau confronts one of the most urgent questions of our time. Can divine sovereignty survive synthetic systems? From biometric IDs and neural implants to digital liturgies and algorithmic control, this book examines how emerging technologies may reshape worship, identity, and freedom itself. With piercing clarity and prophetic imagination, Martineau challenges readers to discern the difference between convenience and compliance, between code and covenant. Whether you're a technologist, theologian, or simply a seeker in a digital age, AI and God, Can the Two Coexist? Offers a roadmap for spiritual resilience and ethical stewardship. It's not just a book, it's a call to awaken. Available on Amazon.
And we're back. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure our listeners are on the edge of their seat to hear about your NFL pick. But we're going to take one pause because we've been enjoying this bourbon and we have to share a little bit what you brought today.
So I brought Rowan's Creek. It's a Willet product. It's funny. I didn't start drinking bourbon until I think 2018. A good friend of ours, Curtis Aiken, is a connoisseur.
He's a connoisseur, and he's also, if you're not the sharpest dressed man, it's a close second or first. I mean, Curtis is always dressed to the
It's
nine.
not even close.
Yeah.
Kurt wins.
He is.
Kurt wins.
I never feel like I'm dressed like a farmer. The night we went to hang out together, I might as well have been wearing dungarees. It was very embarrassing.
Curtis
for
is
me, I'll tell you
always. I mean, he looks the part. He's so smooth. Plus, being a Pitt fan and watching him in the '80s when he dominated the point guard position, I mean, he was one of the best.
I know we've been telling stories, but one of the interesting things. So I've known Kurt since I was in middle school. Always looked up to him. I'm a Pitt guy.
Yeah.
Pitt basketball. Their media guide one year had a picture of the team, and I kept it for years. And I finally gave it to Kurt. But the team picture was the entire team in suits, and I promise you, at 21, 22 years old,
We know where that
Curtis
came from.
Aiken was the best dressed man in that photo. So he now owns Bravado 14,
which is
the premier.
Thank you for taking us there.
Yeah.
It is the premier.
It is the
bourbon.
premier, and it is the exclusive, and it's so you would not know it's at least his first bravado in Pittsburgh. You would not even know it exists. It's very discreet, right next to his business. Gated entry. You walk in, a gorgeous putting green in the back, of course, which caught my eye, and then this beautiful showcase room where all the members have their own locker. You have this beautiful bar. I think the first night you brought me in, it left such an impression because they had a little jazz ensemble going on in the corner. And of course, I mean, Kurt, just dressed
to the nines.
I mean, he is the perfect host.
He's a perfect host. Again, better human being.
Yeah.
And helped me to develop a bourbon palate. He takes members of the club for certain bourbon tours, right? So you go into Bourbon Trail. He took us to Buffalo Trace, right?
Nice.
Where we met the original master distiller of Blanton's grandson. And, one of the things that resonated with me, and Kurt probably has the most impressive bourbon collection I've ever seen. Like, literally, hands down, top to bottom, he's got it all. And
He's also got the red velvet room.
the red velvet room, right, downstairs.
You can drink a bourbon that sells at that price point, sitting in a red velvet room, actually affects the flavor. I mean, it does taste better.
The ambiance
in a
is
nice room.
amazing.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 4-screen, sports
The
TVs.
best advice I got from this gentleman from Buffalo Trace, Freddie Johnson. So I'm going to say his name because he's an amazing human being. If you're ever at Buffalo Trace, look him up. He said to me one day, he goes, Eddie, what kind of bourbons do you have? I'm like rattling off all these names. Brad, you've seen some of the things I have. Again, not even close to Kurt, but I got a couple things in there.
You have a pretty nice collection.
And he said, Eddie, are they open? I said, oh, no, they're on the Eddie, bourbon's meant to share. He's like, it's meant to bring people together.
Amen.
I want you to open those bottles and share them.
Well,
and that resonated.
Well,
when you think about it.
And it resonates with us because everything's always better with bourbon.
Always better with bourbon. What a segue.
What a shameless plug.
Right.
What a segue. See how we work together? Could you imagine us in court together?
No, I don't want to be on the other side.
Hey, I'd like to get you in court. You're always on the contract side. I would love to have you in
More
court.
likely to be a client. You do criminal law?
Actually, we set it up this way. Brad and I are representing Deacon here.
Yeah, we are.
May it please the court.
No, but so let's get into the real heart of the matter. We are at the cusp of Super Bowl week. And we got two of the prominent teams, and I did call these two teams before. But again, what was the hard part of calling it? They were both the best in their division. So, but they survived, and there were some good games going through the playoffs. Could have gone either way a few times, a few controversial calls. Buffalo coming to mind, and I think it cost a coaching job. So who do you see and who do you like coming up?
You know, I usually tell people I root for players, not teams, because of the business that I'm in.
Yeah, fair.
You know, so I want to see a good game. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I've been to so many Super Bowls, because you go annually.
Man. Must be tough.
And, well, you know what? I tell you, I'm going to share a little insight with you. If you haven't been to one and you can go to one, great opportunity.
You got to go. Yeah.
You know, I got to take my dad to his first and last because he said he didn't want to go back because it's a chore. But, you know, watching it at home, there's something about that. There's something about it because, you know, you go, there's security, there's lines, there's all that other good stuff. You don't get the replays, right?
Well, and it's changed with 4K TV, with the camera angles, with the sound. You know, it's a different game than the blurry game that we grew up watching. As
absolutely.
kids.
But the NFL does such a tremendous job.
They do.
I mean, it's a show. Remember, at the end of the day, everybody forgets this is entertainment, right? The reason they're able to have such large media contracts, it's entertainment. They want to entertain.
Well,
from the pre-show to the halftime show to the post-show during the game.
It's been entertaining this year, and these two teams I think are going to battle it out. They're both very strong. They both got great up and coming. You know, Sam Darnold. I mean, his last few years have just been fun to watch, coming from Minnesota to now Seattle, and then Drake May. Those shoes are so big. How did he fill the GOAT's shoes? And now look what he's doing. I mean, speaking of shoes, maybe it's a good segue with Drake May since you're wearing North Carolina shoes.
Drake's North Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm a shoe aficionado.
I know you
I
are.
I don't know how I put this in frame. Do I just lift my foot
No, just
up?
lift it right up. There it is. Yeah,
Eddie's
My
got-
Japan make Jordans.
Eddie's got sneaker pimps on payroll.
those are impressive. So how did you come by those?
I can't tell you.
Okay. Well,
You got to have a plug. You got to have a plug. There's such a thing as a sneaker plug, and I got a sneaker plug.
well,
You can't buy those.
No,
you
you
can't buy those.
I think they'd be hard to find, but
Yep.
it's a great show. And look, it's about your personality. The great thing about professionalism now, and if you noticed it, you know, downtown and around, you see people with suits on. A lot of times they'll have tennis shoes on.
I love it.
In the right environment, right? You
Right.
can't do that all the time.
Can't go into court that
but
way,
but
yeah.
it demonstrates your personality. So I look, the shoe thing for me isn't like some of these people who've doing it 5 or 10 years when it's become, you know, the cool thing to do. I've been doing it since the mid '80s.
You have.
I could tell you my first shoe.
Tell me.
The first shoe that actually meant something was the Fila's back when I was in 7th grade.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Right. Then I got the Converse
They were
Weapon.
sharp schools. They
I
were
got the
sharp.
Converse Weapons.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I was the first person in my school to have Air Jordans,
Yeah. The Oak and I had the
which
the
were
pumps.
$65 at the time.
The
Yeah,
Reebok
the
pumps.
Reebok
Oh
pumps,
yeah.
and we also had the Air Jordans, but nobody else had Hakeem Olajuwon's Ectonics.
Oh, the Etonics. I had them.
Yeah, I actually had
That was
them.
our team shoe.
I wanted Air Jordans. My dad's like, no, Ectonics are good for you.
No, and
story.
and,
That's a true
and
story,
sneakers have evolved. And I joke to this day. I know this isn't the topic of our discussion, but you know, I love the days where you had to go to the mall, you had to wait in line,
Right.
or know somebody to get the shoe, right?
Yeah. Foot Locker.
Now with all the bots and all this other stuff, like I'm an old guy. I got no shot, unless you have a plug. Unless you have a plug,
Yeah.
somebody could help you out.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
But you know, speaking of shoes, that fits into this whole thing because now the shoe companies are impacting
They are.
NIL.
But you still haven't shared your Super Bowl picks.
Yeah, I
Super
know.
Bowl
He's not
pick-
gonna do it.
He-
I was gonna say
you notice
something.
how he's kind of sidetracking
You know,
that? I mean, who-
again, it's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
you got 2 new coaches with 2 new teams, right? You know,
Both massive underdogs. Nobody would've
but
picked either
nobody picked either one of these teams to be there.
not in the beginning of the year. That's for sure.
You know, if I, it's tough. I mean, I think from a momentum standpoint, maybe the Seahawks.
They look
just
tough.
because they look really tough.
They look tough.
But how can you not love Mike Vrabel and what he's done in New England?
I got an opinion. I'm
And
not going to share.
and you know, Drake May and what he's done up there with the opportunity.
I think it's impressive.
you know.
He's won the city and the area back over again. I mean, unfortunately, when Belichick had to leave and Todd Brady retired or moved on to Tampa for first retired and then moved on to Tampa,
Right.
and then that's a hard loss. I mean, I'm not even a New England fan, but I could feel it from down here. I mean, that's a hard. You're talking about 2 legends that had a 20-some year stretch going together.
It's change.
It
It's
is.
inevitable, right? And that's what's most difficult for the fans.
But they've done a wonderful job this quick to be right back where Tom Brady took them so many times.
Well, and again, kudos to their personnel departments, right, to finding the right pieces of the puzzle. People forget there's a lot that goes into this, right? It's not just the coach and the X's and O's. It's the Jimmy and the Joes, right? So it's the individuals who are out there, the scouting departments who are working, diligently to find those right pieces of the puzzle. It's free agency.
You interact with those guys?
Absolutely, you have to.
Yeah, totally, right?
That's
right?
where the game is
Because
played.
well, but that's you pull back the curtain.
Yeah.
You have to interact with personnel departments, right? You have to interact with college personnel for your college prospects.
Right.
You have to interact with pro personnel for your pro prospects, right? For free agency. Get data. How do you feel about this guy? How do you think he fits in your system? Again, and it goes back to what did we discuss first when we got on the set here was relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have those relationships.
Sure. Yep.
You got to shake the hands, and people say to me all the time, Eddie, you travel so much, you go to some cool places. It's hard. It's exhausting, right? Because you're on. You're going to all-star games not just to see your guys, but to interact with the scouts who are there evaluating them.
That's right.
Yeah, you never want to commoditize those personalities and those people because these are humans we're talking about. But it's the same level of due diligence that any investor is going to do in the market.
Absolutely.
You can trust the data, but sometimes the data is not going to portray the reality. You got to have a relationship to help you see beyond the data, help you learn stuff that's not apparent in the data.
Right.
Remarkable, the parallels.
And it's not so much the good stuff they do either.
Yeah.
You got to note the bad things they do.
Yeah,
So
right.
I always ask, my first
and-
question is, what are the knocks?
Well,
What are we up against?
Yeah, and this is all the due diligence that's so intense because the Super Bowl is the biggest betting game of the year. I don't bet on a normal basis, but the Super Bowl is probably the one time I do. I like to.
I got some squares.
Yep, yeah, me too. I like to be part of that, and I'm picking the Patriots.
You know where I'm at. Seahawks for me. I'm just going to cut it off there. I don't want to be negative.
Deacon, you told us. how
Yeah,
you
I
feel
told you,
about
right.
it.
I'll tell you again.
Last week.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you again next week.
Yeah, yeah. That's because you had yeah. Well, I'm not.
We don't have to talk about
Yeah,
it.
we don't talk about.
And I'm a fan, and I'm not wagering. So there we go. There we go. But I mean, great transition again into NIL. What we're here to talk about.
See how I tried to pull it on him twice, but I'm not going to get it. So
No, he got it.
It's fine, but we're
That was a smooth transition. Smooth transition.
Yeah.
But
that's a lawyer. That's a lawyer. And let me just tell, as a close friend of yours for 26 years, I've done multiple business ventures with you, which I've been privileged to do. It's been so much fun, and seeing you work behind the scenes, your ethics, which that goes so long. I mean, Eddie is, and just so you know, he was the chair of the Pennsylvania Ethics Board, and
yeah, I was the hearing committee chair.
That's right.
For the disciplinary board. So.
which that shows you that our peers think of Eddie so highly in regard. So, Eddie, I just want to put that out there. And look, I know I was teasing you, trying to get it out. I know you can't do that, but
Again, but it's interesting. We were talking about evaluation. Think about that in the sense of how you're putting together your rosters now for collegiate sports,
Personalities, matter.
right? Personalities matter.
Work ethic matters.
But the evaluation of talent. Think about when the portal opens and how you have to evaluate to fill out your roster now.
it's a whole different game.
Whole different
And
ballgame.
it's global.
Global.
We're not just talking about a 10-team league. It's a global business now.
It is,
a global
and
business.
I think this is what has really ruffled feathers in the NIL, is because that predictability, that business model, that governance model that was in sports, collegiate sports especially, has changed overnight.
It's been disruptive.
It has. And so all the stuff that you worked so hard and you got so good and you got so familiar as a coach and you worked your way through the ranks, whether it was a grad assistant, whether it was playing and then getting into the coaching area. And you can see why some of these coaches are frustrated. You can see why some of these administrators are frustrated. You can see why the fans are frustrated because everything's changed.
Well, I mean, you think about the ecosystem, right? It was grassroots basketball, whatever it was, football. Now 7-on-7 will go evaluate. We're going to identify these freshmen that come into our program. We're going to develop them over years. Hopefully they don't transfer. They graduate as seniors, go to the NFL, do whatever they do, right? Now, in the advent of, you can transfer after the year is over, you've got a portal, that's out the window, right? There's still evaluation at the younger stages, but in a win society where people want to see, that ROI in our business immediately,
Right?
they got to win. So in order to win, you want to go to proven commodities. You talked about commodities earlier, proven commodities. And what is that? Is you go into the portal, You evaluate, this guy played at maybe a mid-major or low major. He could fit well into my high major program. I see his film. I see what he did in his non-conference games against other teams. And you go and you get those individuals.
Now, who has been better, and just on that, evaluating commodities, who's been better at finding the secret gems than Kurt Cignetti at Indiana?
I mean,
that story this last year and a half. Wow, right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
They have mastered it. I mean, that was a master class in how to put together a roster.
Is he maybe rewriting the script and maybe rewriting the book on how to perform at a high level? You know, Nick Saban, his mentor when he was at Alabama, he had the script down.
Right.
He was the repeat guy that was always there, competing every year in and out. And NIL is what drew him out of it, at least on the face of it, right? So here you got Kurt Cignetti, who was a part of that, but he's figured it out. He's figured it out quickly.
They did a tremendous job. I mean, I'm not privy to what they spent and who got what or where, but when you just look at the constitution of the roster and going and finding like a Mendoza,
wow,
right?
Right?
Wow, that's incredible.
Who's that offensive lineman he got from Notre Dame? That was a huge pickup.
Yeah, they grabbed that kid. Yeah. I mean, they brought a lot of guys over, I think, from JMU.
Yeah,
and they did. I think they had 13 top. I mean, that says a lot about your coach too. I mean, if you're willing to jump and go with him to the next level, that's disruptive,
right?
And but now you have that buy-in from your players at JMU,
and beyond that, like I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I think they had the least amount of 4- and 5-star players on their roster than any other school.
The 5 stars, if they had any,
So when you go back and look at it, there's different ways to view talent, but they found the best combination versus the most amount of 4- and 5-star athletes that you hope turned into, national champions.
So spotting that talent is a unique skill that maybe Cignetti has in a way that others don't. Seems pretty clear that he might, but that ain't the whole story. You got to have a pile of money to help pay for it, and Indiana had that in a unique way as well, right?
Obviously they had the support to do what they needed to do. Last year was a unique the it wasn't rev share at that point, but the opportunity to pay the players was in a unique place because of the advent of the House settlement.
That's right.
So the House settlement didn't take effect until July 1.
So just for our listeners, what was that settlement?
So the settlement was a consolidation of cases, which finally allowed the universities to do two things. They were able to pay a settlement to athletes that come through for a certain period before this time. Over a 10-year span, it was $2.5 billion in the settlement, right, to those student athletes, and it allowed universities now to directly pay.
And they were alleging that their name, image, and likeness, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to make that distinction.
Yeah, make the distinction.
Yeah,
I think it's important to understand what that case was.
Well, I think the distinction of what this is really important.
Yeah.
Because I think, when you talk about bantering in restaurants and family gatherings, it's, it almost sounds like it's pay to play. It's not. It's name, image, likeness. That's an IP right, right? It's your right to exploit your name, image, and likeness.
It's inherent
monetize
right.
it.
Just like
right?
this beautiful face over here, and and the beautiful face behind the camera with all that makeup on it. But I mean, it is your face, your image, your likeness. Nobody else has a right to it but yourself.
And that's yourself. So
and
now,
am I right, Eddie? I'm sorry. Let me ask you this. It can be 100% predicated on your skill on the field, but it doesn't have to be. If you have the ability as an athlete to go out, and maybe you're a kind of a middling bench player, but you have something unique about your personality that people are willing to sponsor.
There's no limits to who can get name, image, and likeness on the roster.
There isn't,
right?
Yeah,
in fact, I'll tell you something interesting. I've heard of programs that have brought in athletes that may or may not have made a roster in the past, but they have an incredible social media following.
Right.
That's
right.
So I just read something the other day and saw something the other day that is actually now becoming kind of trending because they're looking at it as a business.
Right.
They're looking at that rate of return that we're talking about.
Right.
And that's also been some of the negative sides, right?
Well, it's visibility. I mean, and just to go back to the name, image, and likeness, just piece of this, just for clarity.
Right.
Again, now the student athlete can monetize that. They can monetize that, through the university through rev share.
And they couldn't before.
Right.
And that was illegal, and you would get kicked out if you did that. It was in fact players that even took anything beyond the scope.
Listen, when I was my brief fleeting association with Division I sports, I couldn't have a job for fear of there being some sort of impropriety or somebody paying me for something, giving me money that I wasn't. Didn't last very long.
I didn't realize acapella was a sport.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, to the point.
It's competitive acapella, by the way.
Well, as the Wake Forest.
We competed like motherfuckers. I'll tell you what. Yeah.
We'll have a karaoke session.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry to be interrupted.
But again, now they have the opportunity through the college university to monetize that name, image, and likeness, right? For services, allowing the college and university to exploit their name, image, and likeness to the benefit of the program, right? Up to the $20.5 million cap, which is funded by sponsorships, media, and ticket sales, right?
So this cap, now, it's just so interesting because, they set this arbitrary cap. Is that going to come under fire?
Well, no, because, they have their formula for how they came up with the number, taking the average.
That's all part of the settlement, right?
It's all part of the settlement. So let me say this to your listeners. The CSC has a great website, College Sports Commission, breaks all this down for you. So for those, nerds like us who want to learn about the nooks and the crannies and, really get behind the curtain, you can go there and find all the data that you want.
And this is very helpful to understand how this all progressed. So the initial lawsuit that arose that ended in that $2.5 billion, they alleged, and how many years did they go back that they were alleging? Was it 10 years that athletes that had already been out of sports?
Yeah, I think it went back to, the year was 2016.
Right.
Was the year 2014, one of the two. But it started back, if you want to go back, it started with O'Bannon.
Ed O'Bannon.
Ed O'Bannon.
UCLA basketball stuff.
And the complaint was...
He's our year. I can remember playing in Nike
EA
tournaments.
Sports. But, it went back to EA Sports, right? NCAA basketball.
Yep.
Where, you're using athletes, their likeness in the game. You know exactly who they are.
That was a video game.
It was a video game, right?
Yeah,
it was,
But there was licensing that came with that didn't go to the student athletes.
That's right.
So now you flash forward, the student athletes are saying, well, wait a second, you're exploiting our intellectual property.
Yeah,
Shouldn't we get some of that?
And so the lawsuits that kind of arose after...
You got Alston.
So what resulted from the settlement? Did rev share also result from this?
Where we're at right now is a derivative of that settlement.
Okay, so tell the listeners what rev share is and how that came about.
So again, the rev share is the college university's ability to pay the student athletes for the exploitation of their name, image, and likeness. Right? It's supposed to put everybody on that somewhat of an even playing field. But the issue is there's a cap. It's 20.5, and again, 20.5 is made up of.
I predict that's coming
media
under fire
rights,
eventually.
ticket sales, and sponsorships. But here's the issue, guys. Just because that's the cap doesn't mean that's what you have to spend.
Yeah, right.
Right? So, P4s are automatically in that group. And if you're not a P4, you could opt in. There was a deadline.
And what's a P4?
Opt in. A Power 4 school.
Okay.
So that's your SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12.
Right. So my Wake Forest, even though they're part of that group.
You're in that group. You're in that group. Right. But what it allowed for a lot of schools to do if you opted in was, one of the biggest things was you got the roster spots. Right, there's increased roster spots now. So, football was 85 scholarships. Now it's 105 roster spots.
Oh, my.
You read the articles that could affect walk-ons and other opportunities for student athletes on,
and that's been a very good, if you're looking at the pros and cons of how this is all.
But it's good. And if you look at sports like, I think baseball has 36 roster spots now when it had 11.7 scholarships. Right. So that's phenomenal. And now every spot you have above those scholarship spots that you previously had, they have to come out of your rev share cap, right? So that's how you fund it. But now if you're a baseball program and you're fully funded, you could have 36 scholarship baseball players.
It's really something.
And remember, and I use baseball as an example because I'm a baseball dad of a kid who played. Those weren't full scholarships. But for some of them, you had to make 11.7 scholarships spread out across an entire roster. I mean, you're a golfer. I'm sure it's the same thing.
He's a drinker.
And a golfer. I've golfed. He could play. But when you think about that, you think about the power of that. You think about non-revenue generating sports, what they call the Olympic sports now.
Yeah, right.
That's a bonus for those student athletes to now have the ability to actually be on scholarship.
That's right.
The problem is football programs carried a lot more than 105 student athletes, right? So that's where it affects. That's the back end effect. Now, instead of having all those walk-ons, you got 105 roster spots.
Well, then the major case, as two lawyers talking back and forth, and I think it's helpful to understand why the college athletics just did this, what seemed like to the normal person, a knee-jerk kind of reaction where they just, one day you weren't allowed to do it, the next day it's game on.
See, that's where somebody like me comes in. It's like we had this regulatory regime forever, and it's how we all understood amateur sports. And then one day, it all goes away. And it seems to the casual fan who doesn't keep up with this stuff every day. I'm not.
You are a casual dresser. I mean, those Crocs are fantastic with those socks, and that hat. But yeah, go ahead.
It seems like such a departure from the way we all came to understand amateur sports. I know that we all think about it as though this is like, okay, the kids are getting paid, but there's a whole nother piece of this, which is the collective, right? And then there's the rev share, there's the collective.
Well, there's the third-party deals because, I mean, there's still collectives, but remember, out of the CSC, there's a whole new, kind of process for how you view those because they don't want those to be, those third-party deals to be a circumvention of the cap.
Right.
Which they theoretically could be if used in an appropriate manner.
Right.
But under the CSC, there's a process you have to go through. Any NIL deal over $600 has to be put in NIL Go and be evaluated by the CSC, the College Sports Commission, right? To see who are you doing the deal with? They want the deals to be with real third parties. It can't be just wink, wink, nod, nod. It has to be a deal with a real entity for services not affiliated.
So I'm going to fire back at that. Is that really free? I mean, we're talking, and that was the suit that resulted after the settlement, and that is is it the Alston?
Alston.
Yeah, Alston Supreme Court suit where they came under fire for antitrust because they were, dominating this, and then in a concurring opinion, I think Justice Kavanaugh said, that if you're going to limit the player's ability to do what they want to do, then they're not truly independent contractors as they would be treated in any other industry. And the college athletics is not above that.
Right.
They're not exempt from that. And if you're going to continue to do that, then you're going to be considered an employer. And I think that's the white elephant in the room. But my point in that regard is if you're going to limit their ability and you're going to have to still go in front of a panel, you're still going to have to go in front of a commission. You're still going to have to disclose all that. Are they not still doing the things that the Supreme Court said you can't do?
But you have to have a framework.
Well,
right?
I understand.
Some type of a
you
framework.
definitely have to have a framework. But why do they have this framework? I mean, why don't they just let the free market flow and let the student negotiate their name, image, and likeness to their own? Why are they involved in that negotiation?
Well, I think they're involved to try to enforce the terms under the House settlement so that you're not exceeding the 20.5 cap, right? Because you think about it, you could do these deals. You could say, all right, Brad Martineau, I'm going to pay you $1,000 that's going to count against this rev share cap, but then I'm going to pay you $5 million.
But see, this is where this is
a separate deal, and I circumvented the cap.
You
right?
did. So, but this is where I have a big problem with because it was a settlement that set this cap. It wasn't the courts.
Right. That's interesting for us non-lawyers. That's interesting.
And I would take this back to the Supreme Court and say that cap is arbitrary. You're setting a cap on the free market.
That would be must-see TV, people.
Well, you're setting a cap for the colleges and universities and how they can spend that money.
Well, they can spend
that's within their confines, right?
Right. So no,
but the student athlete can go out.
So the student athlete, and maybe that's where I'm confused.
Those third-party deals do not count against the cap.
Okay, good.
So
that's where I was a little bit.
It's not going to, and I appreciate you illustrating that for clarity because a lot of people get confused.
No, I do,
right?
and I'm thinking if there's a cap involved, then are we still not limiting the free market?
There's a cap on what the college and universities can do to exploit their student athletes' rev share.
Period.
That's them.
Got it. And that makes a lot of sense.
Then you have third-party deals, which could include, somewhat collectives, but the collectives have to have an actual business purpose. They can't just be a facilitator, so to speak.
Right. A kid could go beyond that and do their own deal.
Right, but the kid could go out beyond that. They could do their own deal, which is evaluated by the College Sports Commission. So now they come in and they say, we need to make sure these are legitimate deals that fall within the confines of this new structure that we have.
And I can understand that because otherwise it would just be a passing of the suitcase.
And they want to make sure the college universities aren't setting up companies out there to facilitate and work their way around the cap. So
we have so much more to discuss, Eddie.
I'm going to leave you with this. They want to know who the payor is.
Yeah.
Right. They want to make sure that the deal has a valid business purpose, and then there's a compensation range to make sure that this all fits. Now, you're going to see, I think, litigation at some point when certain deals get rejected by the CSC, because they do, not all of them pass muster.
I think that's what I was hinting at. There's a third
There's
party
going
that's
to be litigation.
yeah.
Because when you talk about free market and when you talk about value, who am I to tell Brad Martineau what Deacon Palmer is worth to him in a third party deal, right? And conventional wisdom would tell you, what do the social media, followers look like? What kind of outreach does he have in the community? All these other, factors that you could use to try to determine.
Deacon's a
if
mystery.
The number's right.
He's a mystery.
He's a mystery.
We have so much to talk about. I mean, we can go on, and time's limited this week. But I do want to continue this conversation. I mean, there's so much to talk about with NIL. We're just starting to get below the surface of why it's here. And there's so much to talk about what's going on in this day and age, where the contracts are coming from, why they're moving, why the timing of it all, where's it going in the future, and where do we see it going in the future. So we're going to wrap it up today, but we'll be back here in part 2 with Eddie Edwards. This is definitely one conversation we want to continue to keep going, right, Deke?
Totally. And, sending us out, we just really want to say we really appreciate all of the love and support that we've gotten so early on. Hopefully this conversation is piquing your interest. You want to come back and hear the rest of it. There's a lot more we're going to go through. I know I'm just trying to figure out some of the questions that I want to ask Eddie when I get a chance to talk. These guys are doing all the smooth thinking. I'm focusing on the fast drinking. But,
it was a bad hair day, too.
It was a bad hair day. You never know. Next week we might do something special with the hair. But definitely want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Love you. Everything's better with bourbon, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week, everybody.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Thanks, Eddie.
Cheers.
Thank you guys. With us,
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
This has been the Better with Bourbon podcast with Brad Martineau and Deacon Palmer. New episodes drop weekly. Be sure to subscribe or follow us.
The views and opinions shared on the Better with Bourbon podcast are our own and those of our guests. Nothing we discuss should be taken as financial, legal, business, or gambling advice. Don't make investment, business, or betting decisions based on our conversations, as you should always talk to a qualified professional. Always drink responsibly, never drink and drive, and only consume alcohol if you are of legal drinking age.